Hey fishing friend, my name is JC with Rad Reeling Fishing. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some safety tips that have to do with the Old Town Sportsman AutoPilot 120 and the AutoPilot 136, specific to these model kayaks. I've been using the 120 now for a year, you guys, and there are some things that I've learned that hopefully will help you from getting in trouble on the water. We're going to get to it, you guys, right after this. All right, first thing I think is so vitally important, you've got to know how to climb back into your kayak. These kayaks are super stable. You're not going to flip a 120 or a 136, but stability is relative to how good you are at balancing. Accidents happen. You never know when you might fall out of the kayak. So get out in over your head water and practice getting in your kayak, because you never know when you might fall out. Number two, always wear your PFD, your personal flotation device, when you are kayak fishing. Number three, you guys, your remote control. You've got a lanyard that goes around your neck, but this thing has an adjustment on it. So you want to make sure that you adjust this lanyard up so that it's tight around your neck, so that if you fall out of your kayak, the thing's not going to be able to come off of your neck and you lose your remote control, right? You got to put some type of lubricant on the shear pin for the electric motor. I use Never Seas. Yeah, those shear pins, they corrode if you leave them in there, and they will get all bound up in your electric motor shaft, and if you break one off, you won't be able to get the pin. You'll be stranded. It'll be a mess. The other thing, guys, make sure you have an extra prop nut, shear pin, and washer. I mean, if you have trouble out here on the water and you have to change your shear pin, I mean, there's a chance that you could drop your prop nut or your shear pin down through that hole, and if you don't have an extra, you're pretty much up the creek without a shear pin or a prop nut, right? And while we're talking about extra shear pins, I broke one when I was fishing one time, you guys. The braided line, I had it out in front of me, and I started doing something here in the kayak, and I got distracted. The line got wrapped up in the prop while I was spot locked. It broke the fishing rod, and it wrapped so much line on the prop that it actually sheared the pin. I was fishing in current. It was a mess, you guys. So safety tip, just be careful with your, I know it just sounds so elementary, right? Like, duh, JC, don't let your fishing line go into your trolling motor. But I'm telling you, you have to be aware of that, because when you're fishing in current, you might think that your fishing line is in one position and actually it's floating up underneath the kayak. So you just have to be careful with that. Just learn from my mistakes. I am an experienced fisherman, but I did it, guys, and it was a bad experience for me. This next one, you guys, is something I learned the hard way. It actually happened. I was coming in for a landing, and I could not raise the motor on my kayak, and let me show you what happened. This handle right here that actually raises and lowers the motor, this handle had slipped down inside of the scupper hole. That thing fits right in there perfect, and yeah, it had slipped down in there, gone all the way through the scupper hole, and turned around, and I couldn't pull it out. I mean, it was stuck underneath the kayak, and there was no way for me to lift my motor because the rope would not extend far enough out to lift the motor up. All right, guys, the next thing, you've got to have a multi-tool with you all the time when you're out there. You never know when you might need pliers that you don't have, or you need a screwdriver. One time I was out in my AutoPilot 120. I was just cruising around like level 7 or 8 in the pass, right? And I was rigging up a rod. I went to turn the kayak and slow it down, and it wouldn't respond. It wouldn't do anything. It won't do anything. Nothing at all. This thing had actually locked up for some reason. I could not get a response. So what I had to do is I had to pull the kill switch here, and then I paddled over to the shore to get to safety. This remote control has screws on the back side of it. That's the only way that you can get to the batteries. So I had to disconnect the batteries so it would completely shut the remote control off, because I could not get any response out of the remote control at all. It has never happened to me since then. I mean, I fished out of this kayak a couple hundred times. But anyway, my point is make sure that you have a multi-tool. So the next thing, you got 5 different connections for the electric motor to run. You've got the connection up there, you've got a kill switch underneath the motor there, you've got a kill switch here, you've got a plug underneath the seat, and then your 5th one, you guys, is your connection with the remote control. Now, it has happened to me on several occasions, you guys. I'll be out there fishing, running along, and then all of a sudden I lose a connection with the motor, and the remote control says motor not found. And it's craziness. I mean, you'll be out there and you'll be in the current and everything. You have to troubleshoot it. And basically what I started doing right up front is I would shut the remote control down all the way first, then I would repower it, and still didn't have the motor found there. Then I'd start unplugging connection. I would raise this motor, I would raise the motor up, put the motor back down. I would undo the kill switch, put the kill. I would just unplug and replug in every connection. I finally isolated the problem that I was having. After it happened about 6 or 7 times of being out on the water, I figured out that it was the plug that's underneath the seat right here, you guys. There's that little door, right? You open up this little door, you put the plug in. That little door apparently was creating enough pressure on there that it was causing that battery connection plug to push over to the side. So now, whenever I plug that in, I make sure that that door is pushed way back and it's not putting a lot of pressure on that plug, and I've eliminated my problem. But yeah, it took me quite a few times of losing my connection to get it troubleshot to the place where I figured out which connection it was. You want to make sure that you have a bilge pump. You never know when you might have to pump water out of your hull or somebody else's hull that you're fishing with, right? This kayak is from this bilge pump is from the Better Boat Company. I put a link in the description area. You guys can go check it out. It fits perfectly underneath my seat. Let me show you. Slide that thing right underneath there like that. And you can take the hose and just feed the hose in there as well. Get that hose out of your way. All right, this next one, you guys, has to do with the power level on the remote control. Right now, I'm spot locked, okay? If I was on level 10 coming to this spot, okay? If I was on full power coming to this spot and I hit spot lock, whenever I undo spot lock and I re-engage the prop, that motor is gonna take off on level 10 again, okay? So here's what happened. Let me just show you guys. When this thing is on level 10, I'm going to turn the motor to the right. I'm going to engage the prop and watch how fast this thing turns. You'll really be able to see it with the seawall being here. What happens is if you got a quick thrust with the motor, you just want to be aware of that. That's dangerous, especially if you have your motor turned and you're standing up and you stopped it on level 10, you know, and then you started it again on level 10. There's a good possibility that kayak going one way, your body would go the other, and you'd find yourself in the water, right? This next safety tip is when you are coming in to land your kayak on shore, right? You're going to be landing it in shallow water, but you're running your electric motor. This is a really important tip. So you want to make sure that what you do is you get your electric motor with the arrows lined up like that. And then once you do that, you want to make sure that you just steer the kayak using your feet, because what those arrows are designed to do is when you lift the motor, those arrows have to be pointing at one another. So when you get up there in that shallow water, you're getting ready to land your kayak on the bank, you're going to have to be able to lift your motor up. So that's why get it in that position way before you even get to the bank. Start cruising along and do all of your steering with your feet. That way when you get up to the shore and it comes time to bank on the shore, you can kill your motor, your arrows are still in line, you reach over here, you grab your rope, and your motor will pop right up. If you don't do that, if you are operating your kayak with your remote control, I'm telling you, chances are those arrows are not going to get lined up perfectly. You're not going to be able to lift the motor, and that thing's going to hit the ground. It might break a shear pin or might break something. So yeah, there you go. This next one is super important, you guys. This spot lock feature on this motor, sometimes when you are spot locked, it will just randomly come unspot locked. There's a reason why, and then sometimes I have no idea why it came out of spot lock. Sometimes whenever I catch a fish or I'm having to re-rig and I'm not looking at what I'm doing, I think what's happening is I lean over and the remote control is banging on something, and it causes this spot lock feature to come unlocked. So it is so important that, like right now, I am spot locked right in front of this structure and the current is going that way. Now, if I was over here trying to get a fish off of the hook and my remote control is dangling around over here, and then all of a sudden it comes off a spot lock and I don't realize, and I'm over here trying to take a hook out of a fish, my kayak's going to end up on those rocks or in a piling, or I'm going to end up on an oyster bed. So when you are spot locking, you have to be mindful that you don't spot lock right in front of some type of a dangerous structure that if your spot lock accidentally comes unlocked and you don't realize it because you are busy doing something else, yeah, you don't want to run into that structure. The other thing is just don't get in a hurry to stand up in your kayak. I mean, you always have to just make sure that the conditions and your surroundings are okay. Look, you might be sitting in your seat, you've been fishing for a long time, you're in current, you got a little bit of waves, all of a sudden you're uncomfortable, you feel your bladder saying, hey, I need to stand up, and without thinking you stand up, and the conditions that you are standing up in your kayak are not safe conditions to do that. So don't get in a hurry, okay? Always just pause for a second and think, is this really a safe place for me to stand up in my kayak? Because what I was saying early is that, you know, stability is relative to the user. The kayak is super stable, but if you don't have really good balance, or the conditions where you're standing up are a little bit hazardous, just make sure, okay? That's all I'm saying, you guys. It's something that's happened to me before. I mean, I've been sitting in a spot fishing for a very long time. I get uncomfortable. I think, man, I need to stand up. And I go to stand up and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. The current is flying through here. If I go off balance and fall out of this kayak, I'm just going to be pulled away in the current. So that's all. I'm just saying, just pause and take a moment to make sure that you have safe conditions for standing up in your kayak. Hey, thumbs up or appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. I upload videos all the time. Make sure your notifications are set to all. And everybody, get out there and go fishing, man. Life is fun. Live it. See ya.